setting up your meeting for Facebook Live. It should probably, usually it
Meeting
pops
is
up
now streaming.
before
We're
I
live, dear.
go. We are live. Hello. Happy Tuesday, friends. We are a few minutes late because I don't know how to use technology, though I'm a brilliant coach. So we figured that's okay. And we're really, really excited to join all of you today. We are going to be chatting all about words of the year. So first and foremost, let me introduce Ms. Laurie-Ann Murabito, who is joining us. She's a business coach. She is a fellow mastermind sister, millionaire maker, sister of mine. She's a great friend and just all around brilliant. And I'm excited to chat with her. She's looking down because she is sharing in all the places into my Facebook group, into her Facebook group, so that we can be together on screen with all of you. So I am going to introduce while she's doing the tech because we already figured out I don't know how to do technology. So what we're going to dive into today, words of the year, phrases of the year. This is a practice that I think flies around the personal development space. It is something I know I have been doing for years, but quite transparently, this is something I put in my email. The first time I heard about the word of the year, I was like, say what? And I thought it was kind of a weird, silly thing. And I know I'm not the only one because I have clients tell me that, or they just don't understand what it means or how to come up with a word of the year or why you would even bother. And now I'm going to ask Laurie-Ann in a second her experience, but now not only have I known this for years, but I love this practice. I have my boyfriend doing it. Even our bonus son is choosing a word or a phrase of the year. And want to dive into all of that. We'll share our words of this year, some of the biggest lessons and gifts they brought us, and then we will reveal our word for 2021.
21. Yes. Oh, how fun. This is going to be a great conversation.
I'm excited. Plus, talking with you is always fun and always brings up fun, exciting stuff. Do you want to add anything to your intro now that you're not sharing in all the places for us?
That would mean that I was listening to it while I was doing the tech.
Well, do you want to share anything else about yourself?
I mean, I did hear you say like, yeah, but like we're fellow mastermind in the same group. You've been on my podcast. If you listen to my podcast, you will be hearing Kim's episode in February, which happens to be my birthday month, which is why I picked that month for your episode, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. That makes me happy.
Yeah, thank you. I come from corporate healthcare and moved over to the stages with leadership and started coaching executives. I have like over 20 years experience working for myself, and that's going to be part of I'll talk more about that when I share my 2021 word, because that's kind of part of it, saying that.
I'm excited about. I mean, I already have insight. I know the 2021 word. I want to jump right to that, but we'll talk the other good stuff first. Yeah. I'm curious because I kind of shared a little bit about this, but how long have you been doing word of the year, phrase of the year ish?
Gosh, I really don't know. I'm gonna venture a guess and say probably when I brought my business online and started working in this online space. So probably 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, I'd say about the same.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any highlight words from past years? I'm totally throwing questions at you that you didn't know you was going to ask.
I mean, I'm lucky I know what this year's word is still. But that's because it was so like, I think with each year I get really more intentional about it and trying to like revisit it, put it in places that I'm going to see it often. Whereas other years, I think I, kind of like almost like the novice goal setting or New Year's resolution. You set them on January 1st, and like by the second week, it was like, what was that? What was my goal again for this year? Oh, never mind.
Totally. I feel similarly. I also feel, I don't know if you feel this way, and then we got to tell the people what this actually is. But I feel like when I first started picking words or phrases of the year, I kind of picked words kind of like the way I was like, well, if I pick this, then this will happen. Almost like instead of allowing a word to pick me or like picking a word for maybe the lessons I need. And so even if I did make them a focus, I didn't get the same benefit because I was like, it's like when you try to force something into being instead of allowing it to be. So I don't know if that's been your experience as well, but that's an evolution I've seen in my word of the year as well.
And I don't know if you remember, but when we were picking our words for this year, and I was like, oh, I'll just go with courageous. I just kind of like, but I really, it was like, I didn't really want it. So hello, everybody. My word is for this year is courageous. So like word of the year is kind of like, for me, I kind of call it like a theme. It's like a word of the year is like kind of like for me, I look at it as a theme and a filter. Am I being courageous? Would this be a courageous thing to do, or step into? And I just kind of picked, I was like, oh, fine, I'll just go with courageous. I was very dramatic about it too. Um, and because I just felt like it was sort of, actually, I know what it is, Kim. I think I had courageous the past 2 years, but I really like stepped
Mm,
more into it, I think, this
mhm,
past year. So
mhm.
that's probably, I think that was part of the, I'll just go with courageous again. But it meant something different. I just felt like in January, I felt like it was, it was saying that, oh, I'm not a courageous person, which is why I'm picking the
Mm.
word courageous. And that wasn't it at all. Like it was a long time ago, it was my moment. I don't know if you remember that, but everybody like in our mastermind was like, no, this is how I see courageous. And they were like, it's a great word for you.
I think sometimes words choose you
Mm-hmm.
as well. I
Mm-hmm.
I'll share in terms of kind of how I see this practice, and I don't know how you use yours, but I think because I do think there's something where it's like we think if we're picking a word, maybe it means we're not that or we don't have that. But I really see it almost as like a meditation for the year, and like you said, a filter and something. For me personally, I write my word. I had a phrase this year, but I write it at the top of my planner every morning as a reminder, and it's sort of like that touchstone of like this is just my intention and my filter
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm reminding myself. And
Mm-hmm.
it's also something when I'm going through challenges or like growth moments that feel sticky, I'll either use it as a question or as like, what was the opportunity here? Like kind of looking at it through my phrase. And that has been, for me, a very fascinating way to play with word or phrase of the year. So I don't know for you if it feels similar, if there's anything you want to add. I feel like most people at this point know what word of the year is, but I don't want to assume for
Right. No,
anyone
and I think that's
who's
good.
new to it.
Um, I think I really like that you write it at the top of your planner. Like, is it a daily planner or is it like a
Mm-hmm.
weekly planner? Okay, so I love that that's how
Well, it's
you
on the floor.
stay. Okay. I love how you that's what you do with it. And you and I were talking, just last week or the week before when we were doing the podcast interview, that I'm looking for like almost like a piece of art or something. So I've been on Etsy, like looking for people who do those custom word art, like whether it's going to be a frame or, then again, it's like you can't have too many, like word reminders, so, it could be a piece of jewelry, but just being attached to it, as it's just a reminder in case, because life gets busy and sometimes we do forget, and it's like no big deal if you forget. But I really like that you write it down.
It feeds the same purpose. I
Mm-hmm.
think our coach, Lacey, I think she once had a stone or something that had her word of the year
Mm-hmm.
written on it. In past years, not in this apartment, I've had a whiteboard where I'll write it on the top. So just to give other people ideas. But again, just to have that reminder and that touch point of this is my intention, this is what I'm really
Yeah.
focused on. The other thing is you were saying that comes up for me with a word or phrase of the year. I also feel like it's my opportunity where it's like, I'm going to get so intimate with this word and
Mm.
really learn it. I had one year, not last year, the year before, my word was up level. And I felt like I just learned the heck, like I just learned all the different sides of it, the light, the dark, the good, the bad. We'll share my word this year was, or it was a phrase, was bring the joy. And I feel same thing. I feel like I really had like a date with this for a year. I'm like, we just got to know each other. So I don't know if that feels similar
Yeah.
for you.
Well, I don't know if, well, with the word
Courageous.
courageous, I was just kind of like, not sure if I want to get to know you. Like, what does getting to know you mean? But, because I'd like, I should already be courageous. Um, but when I look back, there were lots of courageous moments, so I really feel like this year, like I really did lean right into it. Whether I was aware of it at the time, because I think a lot of times, I was just stepping into this like, let me do what I need to do. and sometimes that is being courageous, and sometimes it's just, and then it starts just kind of like, it becomes me. It just becomes Laurie-Ann.
You become the word. I feel like it's so
Yeah.
meta in that way. I want to pull up I realize we're supposed to be checking the comments from you all. So you'll have to share with us if you are watching live, if you picked a word for this year. I don't know if I can see it. Here we go. If you picked a word for this year, or if you already know your word for next year. I don't see any comments yet.
I
And
don't see any.
I want to talk about lessons of our word, but real quick before we do, any thoughts for someone who wants to choose a word of the year and doesn't know how, or is stuck on their word of the year, just in terms of I feel like mine this year picked me, and I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on just how you picked that
So
word.
I actually posted this question in a group that I'm a member of, and like over 100 people answer. And I was really curious to see like what words are people choosing. And some people shared like this year my word was this. A lot of people did say, like, here's the word that I chose. Here's a word that chose me. And then then there was a group of people who said, this is my word. It scares the shit out of me.
Mm.
And, of course I was like, tell me more, because I mean, like, that means like you're, increasing your you're on the edge of your comfort zone, and you're willing to step over that. And some really interesting answers, just because like I have to, it's like, this is a make or break. I'm tired. Oh, one woman said, I'm tired of being a secret.
Oh, that literally just gave me goosebumps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ah, something that comes up for me when you say that, in terms of, because I don't know that there's a right way. It's not like there's some method out there, like this is how you pick your word or phrase of the year. I feel like most of us usually have an intuitive hit on a few words. And the kind of like barometer I use is if I feel like I'm trying to force a word or pick it because I just want that to be the thing. One year I wanted to pick wealth, and I'm just picking this because I like think that will like make me wealthy, and that's just not how it works. So then I won't, like, that's my barometer for no. And then what you said, and like for me, I always want there to be just enough of the right amount of discomfort with the word, and any word that's been a good one, even bring the joy, because when I chose that, my dad was really sick. And I just remember like the word for me, I was like, this is what I want to embody. This is who I want to be. But it also felt like, okay, but it's also a little edgy given
Yeah.
like the timing of my life and choosing it. And that, if this is helpful to anyone listening, that's always my barometer for how I know when I'm on a word. Next year's word for me definitely hits up on that edge for me, where I'm like, oh gosh, what lesson are you going to bring me?
So we probably should tell them that the reason why we were doing this joint live is not just to share our words, but we were kind of having a custody battle over her 2021 word, which we don't have to reveal yet, but it did kind of turn into, I was like, wow, I really like that word. Maybe I should take that word. But in hindsight, it meant something completely different for me than I know that it's meaning for you. But that's how this turned out. I was like, could I have custody of that word, like maybe every other week?
Well, and I want custody over your phrase. And the
Right.
funny thing is, we'll reveal them at the end. We'll tease it out a little more. But I think the funny thing is, I bet what my meaning of your phrase for 2021 probably means something completely different to me. And I think that's the beauty of this. Like 10 people, I mean, more than 10 people can have the same exact word, and it will mean something completely different. It'll also give you such a different ride for the year. And I think that's the beautiful thing if you actually lean into the practice part of word of the year.
Absolutely.
Should we talk
Let's talk
lessons?
about how our word, or how we showed, like, you sort of, touched on. Why don't you talk about bringing the joy? Because this has been an interesting year.
Holy moly, y'all. So when I picked Bring the Joy, so I guess I should share, when I picked Bring the Joy, part of the reason, what I believe is when you're in the energy of joy, that is like the manifesting energy. That's like when you're like in the state that all the good stuff flows. It's also the reason I chose Bring the Joy and not just joy, is it's also something I really want to embody and bring to other people as a human, as a quality. So that's why I chose the word. I chose it like November, December of last year. And for full context, my dad was very sick at the time, and I knew we had limited time with him. So it was also meaningful in that way. And then 2020 happened. And oh my goodness, so everyone in my Facebook group knows I shared this. In February, I lost my father. Then I came home after his funeral, and within 1 week of coming home, New York City went on lockdown and was the epicenter of COVID. And here I'm sitting in the middle of Bring the Joy. And I think it was just such a fascinating, like, there's no way I could have picked a more perfect word to ride through 2020, two rather challenging things. And I don't know, you know me, so you can say if this feels true or not. I feel like I mean, I love my dad, I miss him so much, but I feel like I went through that experience in the most beautifully joyful way you can experience grief.
Yeah.
I feel like COVID has been a very similar experience, and just like supporting clients through what that means. And I don't know, you'll have to share the same. I'm sure your clients went through a shitstorm with that and bringing the joy. So for me, it's just been this really interesting lesson of to bring, like, joy is what's on the other side often of the heavy stuff. And you can't have joy without sometimes the heavy, dark stuff, because you don't know, like, to bring that, to learn what joy is, like, we sort of have to have the dark to have the light. Otherwise, you don't even know it's bright and light. And I think that's been probably the biggest lesson this word gave me. And so instead of like running away from the dark, it's almost like, how do I lean into and embrace it? Because that's how you also are able to bring the light. Does that make sense?
And get to the other side.
And get to the other side. And I feel like we talk about that a lot in coaching, but just that, like, that dichotomy, and that is the other side to the bring the joy coin. So that has been my biggest takeaway with my phrase. I don't know if anything comes up for you there. I want to hear yours though, because I don't want to just like, I'll just talk about this for 45 minutes straight.
Well, where, you know, like I'm like, I got this question in my head, and I don't want it to be like just to, to bring up your dad, but, where else did you have to like intentionally say, I need to bring the joy?
That one just feels so obvious to me. I think the beginning of lockdown here was definitely one place where I remember even, this was before we had moved. So we're in a New York City apartment. I mean, so blessed in all the ways, but it's a New York City apartment in the middle of winter. Not so much space. And I remember every day literally saying to my boyfriend, to Eric, I was like, my intention is to bring the joy today. Like, literally I tell him, like, that is my intention. We're going to bring that. Like, we are going to like move through this experience, and it is going to be the best thing that ever happened to us. And I feel like that's been the case. So that's just another, I think, example of like how I use the phrase, but really using that as the intention to move through that. And then I've had some, I think, just with clients as well. I mean, I think clients, our job is to support them through challenges. I think this has just been a challenging year for everyone, all the parents out there, in particular, homeschooling, running a business, all of that. And so I think bringing the joy, but doing so in a way, because I think there's almost something of bringing the joy where it's like, yay, instead of like, almost like, how can you groundedly bring the joy and find the way to move through those challenging situations with your clients, and almost like hold this space joyfully. That's been a way it's come up for me. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I would think, because you're using it as a theme, like, so let's just take each day where you're like, I'm like, today I'm just bringing the joy. So, I mean, like, the joy can mean so many things. So it's like the joy of just watching the sunrise, like, like I get up before the sun. I just like, I love that moment. Like, that can be joyful.
Yes.
Whereas somebody else might be like, like, it's not joyful. So, I mean, like, that's, like, it's you and it's your interpretation of all the situations. Like when you were shopping for furniture for your new place.
Bringing the joy.
Yeah, bringing the joy.
1,000%. Well, Laurie-Ann knows this, all of you. I'm not a morning person by nature in any way, shape, or form, but I have been actively bringing my clock back. And this morning I woke up for a morning workout, and that's just a great example of, and my intention with that is, and I'm going to bring the joy, and I am going to, when I wake up, not hit the snooze button or not, oh, why do I have to do this? And instead, like, I'm choosing to do this. And like, how great is it that I'm going to get my run in, and those sorts of things. I think that's a great example of how you can even bring it into those smaller moments in the day.
And then it just becomes a habit.
And it really integrates in, which is the beauty of, I love this practice. I'm obsessed with it now because for 365 days, even if
Even
it's not completely conscious, you're integrating
yeah,
that word.
yeah. So so when I look back on this year, some of my courageous moments were, I'm just like thinking of some of the bigger ones. One, I started a podcast. And I'm really one of those people, like I get an idea and like, huh, okay. And I just run with it.
Yes,
You
you
know,
do.
and it's usually pretty quick. I usually have a short runway. Um, I think also managing through this global pandemic, that was another one. That was definitely a courageous moment. I mean, I do have a list. I made a list.
You launched a new program, didn't you? I'm totally
Oh,
going to
that's
give you
right.
some of
Yes, thank
those.
you. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, I launched a program. That was a lot of fun. Um, Me and my sister started. I mean, we've always like kind of did like the Fitbit challenges with each other, like who can get more steps in. But we also started about halfway through the year. Instead of trying to beat each other, let's do like a weekly goal. That's how it started. Like let's just have a weekly goal where we're both trying to achieve this. Then it turned into a monthly goal. And let me just tell you, like September's monthly goal was about 87 miles. Yeah. So, so that was fun. I mean, but there were times where like I had to find places and times to be walking also. Sometimes it was calling her so that I could pace up and down the hallway. Like during oh, here's another one, like just finding different ways to work out. Yes, I have gym memberships, but when the gyms were closed down, I didn't really want to go into my basement because not because it's cold or anything, but just because like, oh great, it's another place that I'm alone, versus like, let me get outside. And just getting outside and, you know, I mean, I guess for some people they might think like that's not very courageous, but again, like I had to figure out how to be alone a lot, you
Which is
know.
very courageous for, I mean, I think the definition of this year was courageous for anyone
Hmm.
who's on the other
Yes.
side of it. Do you feel like you have a different understanding of the word? Does courageous mean something different to you now than it did at the start of the year?
It does, because I say that with like I'm hesitating because you remember, like like I kind of took it on like, okay, I'll just pick courageous. It was almost like the word picked me, but I
Totally.
was really resisting it. Like, okay, I'll be friends with you. Yeah. And then to like look back on like, oh, look at all the courageous moments that I had. Um, some other courageous, I would say, where courageous like really showed up for me was noticing a lot of my patterns.
Mm,
And I would say in the past, the second half of the year, a lot of them really started to show themselves. And I was just like, and I was just really aware of them. And so I think like one, being courageous is like having the eyes to see them and not make a big deal about them. Like, oh, here's what I do. This doesn't serve me. Let me try something else. And then to like, in our mastermind, like at times to be able to share that information, like, hey, I just noticed this new pattern, and
that's
not,
huge.
yeah, not make it like it doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It just like, oh, this is my thing. And
Mm-hmm.
let me undo this thing, or let me do something that will serve me. So that was, there's a couple of them. One is when things get hard, I have a tendency to like put them down, and suddenly laundry becomes very important.
You mean it's not important? I'm just kidding.
Suddenly I have to make that phone call. Suddenly I
Mm-hmm.
should call my sister again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of my bigger ones, but I have other patterns that I did notice this year.
I think it's I think being willing to look at your patterns and to like actually look and unpack them is one of the most courageous things anyone can do. And then being willing to like bring them to the light and share them with other people, like you've done in Millie's group, or like even with a coach. I think also that is one of the most courageous things I mean, for any of us, because the reason we don't want to look at it is because there's so much fear around it and we're trying to protect ourselves. I mean, to me, that is the definition of courageous. And the other thing that popped up for me, I think it's fascinating, courageous picked you. I think that's almost how a word like courageous has to, because it's like almost in the definition that courageous has to say, like, I'm jumping on your back. And then you're like, okay, I got to be courageous and take you on. For me, that's what comes up there. But I think, yeah, I just give you credit because I think that is one of the most courageous things.
I'm looking at my list here, and so here's one others, and this could be a cool transition to our 2021. For my birthday, I openly shared highs and lows throughout my life, and most of them were things that most people never knew about me.
That is courageous.
Yeah, like, like for example, that, and this, but I lost my husband, my first husband, when I was 36. I was a young widow, and that most people had no idea about that. I also, shared that I lived in Japan when when living overseas wasn't very cool. I wasn't born with an email address, which sort of indicates a little bit. I have 20 years of experience being an entrepreneur, so that's, part of, and I just wanted to share it, because there was nothing wrong with it. But for some reason, I made it like I was making it out that I can't share that stuff.
Well, it's a willingness to be seen that is courageous to say. Like, it's one thing to stuff we've never bothered to say, but the stuff that sometimes we hold dear for different reasons, and the willingness to, like, it's almost like to be naked and bare with those things. That is so courageous. And I think that's just like for anyone watching, like, side note from word of the year, I think it's so applicable to business and for any business owner getting visible. Like, that is courageous.
Yeah. So should we reveal?
Yeah. Let's talk the words we're picking for next
Let's talk
year.
about yours, because we were going to have a custody battle.
Yeah. So my word of the year absolutely picked me. I've had a little resistance because it almost like came in too easily, and I'm like, but I should have to like think about this longer. And my word of the year, or the word for next year, is unapologetic. And I am like, it's like the perfect place in my barometer, because there's just enough of me that's like, oh, that is going to be an edge. And I am like, what ride are you going to take me for? And like, I feel like I'm like teetering on that edge, and it doesn't feel too much where I'm like, I'm just like trying to manufacture something next year. So we can talk more about what they mean for us, but I'm excited, and I'll share more about what it means for me after you reveal your word.
The big reveal is my word is own it.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Which is why custody battle. It's so good. Like,
we're sort of having custody battles both ways. It's
so good.
Yeah.
I said they could have a baby, unapologetically own it.
But I almost think like it's unapologetic meets own it. Like, it almost has to be its own word.
Yes.
I think we'll have to think on that one.
Yes.
What is the baby?
I want to know, I'm seeing, I don't think we have comments. I also don't know if I know how to see on here, but I'm just checking if anybody, I might have to refresh. If anybody is watching and wants to share what your word for next year is, or word for last year, or if you have any questions for us. I don't see any comments though.
Yeah, in my group, I see like there are 3 people watching, but no comments as of right now.
Okay, as long as we're not neglecting anyone.
Yeah. So what was the question?
With own it. So do you feel like it picked you? Like, how did you come to own it?
Oh, so this is how I came up with it. I mean, I had another word, and I can't remember what it is right now. And like in our mastermind, you mentioned that you were unapologetic. And I was like, oh, that's a good word. So then I ended up talking to Lacey about it, our coach. And she's actually the one, she said, I see it like, this is like, she almost like blended some words together and just said, this is what I think it is. So it was between own it and the other word that I had. And I was like, I gotta like think about this, whatever word I mentioned to the group. which obviously like it's not supposed to be. So that's why I can't even remember it. And then I just like, I put the stake in the ground and I just said, it's going to be own it.
So good.
Mm-hmm. So so I'm coming up with, I kind of gave myself my own homework assignment on it, that I had to come up with 52 reasons to own it.
Ooh. Like 52 like reasons to own it in like your business, or to own it, period, full stop. Is there?
Whatever comes up.
I love that.
Whatever comes up. Like, what do I need to own? What, like, what can I own? Because there's a lot of stuff like that I don't talk about. Like, I've written 2 books. I never talk about that.
Own it.
Yeah. So I'm owning the fact that I have written 2 books and like 3 workbooks that are like, they're all on Amazon. So that's just like a tiny example, but there's a lot of stuff that I just kind of, I'll say, like, take for granted. And I just never talk about it. And this is just kind of like as a lesson for everybody who is listening. If there's stuff that you notice that you're not talking about, guess what? Your audience needs to know. Yeah. They want to hear that stuff.
I'm sure you talk to clients about this all the time as well. I feel like this is something I'm always lovingly pushing people. I'm like, you have to own this. You have to let people know, or they're not going to know. And I will share, I know what an edge that can be, because it's not like that's always the most comfortable thing for me. So I think it's such a beautiful way for you to walk your talk for your clients and demonstrate that. And I think, like you said, I think there's also things we just kind of forget everyone doesn't know, because it's so a part. You've written books, and you have more than one book. Like, that's something either in the past or you're just not thinking about all day long. So I think it's such a beautiful opportunity to also reflect on and remember, wait, what are those things I need to let people know?
And I think part of the reason why I haven't talked about them is because, that's from my previous life when I was an executive coach and when I was a professional speaker. Like, it was almost like I drew this line in the sand, and like all of that stuff doesn't matter, it doesn't count. But yes, it does, because there's so many transferable skills.
So many to own, and so many that absolutely, I mean, I know, because I know the type of work you do with your clients and, privately and in your groups, that all of that is literally what you're supporting people with behind the scenes. But what a gift to let people know that and own it, so they don't have to wait to find that out inside one of your programs. I love that.
Thank you.
So good. I'm thinking, I was like looking at the time, because we could probably talk about this forever. Is there anything you're particularly hoping for the word from Own It in 2021? I know that's not necessarily how we think about the word, but I just wonder if there's an intention aside, like using it as that question for you.
I think my question, or my intention on the word, is just to be more accepting of like what I have done, and how it's very applicable now. Like, my audience does, like, they want to know that, she has written books before. So when she does give advice on how to become an Amazon bestseller, she probably knows what she's talking about. So it does, and the fact that I've been, I'm not a brand new coach. I've been coaching for 20 years. I started off at life coaching, and then I moved up to like all the way into executive coaching. And the reason, and that scared me to coach executives, but I've coached executives and CEOs from industries around the globe. And so again, like, it's just me like Laurie-Ann, stop taking all of this stuff for granted or keeping it in the closet, because people really do. It's okay for you to talk about it. So it's going to be a growing moment for me. I was going to say moment and movement, for me to talk about more things.
I love that. I think it's also very permission giving for everyone watching now and on the replay as well. And just such a beautiful example in terms of walking your talk and not taking those things for granted that I think are so easy whether you're a new entrepreneur or you've been in business for 20 years, I think it's so easy. Something I chat with clients about all the time is like your own zone of genius, your own magic. We almost get so like used to it. We have a really hard time pulling it out and sharing it. So I think it's a really nice way to just like give that permission to other people to like hold the mirror up. And it's like, let me own all the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So
you want to talk about your word? What do you hope to get out of Unapologetic next year?
So I think for me, I mean, we'll see it's always whatever I think. It never ends up the way I expect
Right?
it to. It's always exactly what I need and the best thing possible, but never what I expect. But I really want it to be an opportunity for me to work an edge of mine it's just an edge of mine, which is literally being unapologetic in my personal life and not feeling like I need to apologize, being unapologetic in my work and not feeling, which I think is similar to what you're talking about. And it's almost like a different version of what you've been speaking about, which is not shrinking. I talk so much about not hiding in plain sight and taking up space. So this is something I've already been working, but I feel like there's just an opportunity for me to now lean into taking up space unapologetically. Because what I find is when I want to share things and take up space, I was sharing this with a client today, I had right now I was about to pause and not share and was about to apologize or just not share the number. I had a 30K sales day on Monday. And what I want to do is just kind of bury it down or just share with it,
talk
but
about
just,
it. Like,
or
I earned
find
some
a
money.
way to apologize a little bit forwards. Like I'm going to share it, but then find a way to make sure it's okay and safe for people to receive so that, they're not mad or triggered or upset, or they don't think I'm being braggalicious or whatever those things are that I encourage my clients to lean into. So for me, this word it's very much leaning into all of that, but also me wanting to walk my talk. And if I'm telling my clients this, I feel like this is my opportunity to take that to up one level where it's like, all right. And I think kind of what you were saying with courageous, it's sort of like a stripping, it's like a vulnerability, an exercise in vulnerability for me.
Yeah. So everybody tune in next year.
We will share what the words will what they gave us.
We'll reveal how our words showed up in 2021.
We will see if our predictions and intentions were correct.
Yeah. And I'm sure that I will be more because I'll be talking, stepping more into my own it, that there'll be more that I will be able to reveal and share. And it'll be very interesting, but I'm definitely going to do what, one, I need some word art. So I'm going to be looking on Etsy, but I also like your idea of writing it out every day. Maybe that'll be the name of my journal, because that I have the iPad with the pencil. So I don't have a physical journal, but maybe that's what I could call it, the Own It Journal.
Ooh, I love that. I think for me, I'm using it now with my affirmations. I'm unapologetically, and then I'm using it as before each one of my affirmations. So that I think is how I'm going to play with it for a little while.
That's awesome.
So good. Before, I feel like we're wrapping up. I don't see any questions. Do you want to let people in my group know? Do you want to own it and let people know your Facebook group, where they can find you if they want to connect with you more?
Yes. My Facebook group is called Entrepreneurs Making an Impact. And my podcast is called Be in Demand. And those are the two places to definitely learn from me and get some great content. And in the future, you will hear Kim on that podcast. Just putting a little plug in for you.
Thank you. And Laurie-Ann's content it's amazing. And the podcast is so good. So everyone go and check that out.
Thank you.
And then I'll share the same. I'll unapologetically share the same. For anyone in your group who wants to check me out, I'm in Business Besties Creative Bosses, which is my Facebook group. And we'll have a secret reveal in the new year for where else you can find me. For right now, that's the best place to hang out with me. And we go live every week and share a ton of great content in there as well.
Wonderful. This was fun. I'm glad that we did this.
Super fun. Me too. We'll have to do some more of these in the new year. Everyone watching, we love you. Thank you. Share your words of the year with us on the replay, and we will say our
happy holidays.
And happy holidays. My Facebook group, I'll see you next week for one more live before the holidays.